Hi, everybody. Good evening. Um, Dr. Dorian Dugmore welcoming you to the next series of webinars that I hope you find are both enjoyable and interesting, but also some good information on your health and well-being. So um, we'll start, and the whole premise of this next series of presentations will be what we're going to call the Wellness, Health and Lifestyle Audit. And if you were to buy a business or to look at being involved in a new business, the first thing you would do is to engage in a thing called due diligence. And due diligence means you would look at the business, you'd look at the profitability of the business, you'd look at the way in which the business was run, and you'd do your homework in terms of really getting to know about the business. And particularly if you were a buyer of the business, you'd want to really make sure that everything was right about the business and that the business was in a healthy shape. Well, the thing that runs the business generally are people. And what's more important than making sure that the people not in the business, but the people generally in your lifetime are in good shape and in good health? So the whole approach we take in this next series is to do a wellness audit and look at the key aspects that make up a healthy mind and body. So very important. So to do that, then we're looking at health behaviors. And those behaviors are so important to audit and to assess, to check our own health and well-being. So we're looking at a number of topics like exercise, like stress and emotional health and happiness. We're looking at work-life balance, and that's very often a major challenge to our health and well-being when people sometimes spend too much time at work and too much energy engaging in work without looking after their own health and well-being. Sleep, of course, is another behavior that is critically important. We did a webinar earlier on sleep is the new exercise, because that's when our cells repair. So that's so important, as is relaxation, winding down, and releasing some of the stresses and strains of the day so that we have some of our own downtime. So that's a very important behavior. Naturally, diet and nutrition is critical. We are what we eat. And so that's a very important behavior to look at, as is other behaviors that may have a negative impact on our health, like smoking. We know that the correlation between smoking and heart disease and cancer is very strong. It's irrefutable. And so trying not to smoke is a key element that can, of course, benefit our health if you are a smoker, that is. And then alcohol consumption, good and bad news, a very limited and moderate amount can almost be, to a degree, have some benefit to your health, but too much alcohol for sure is damaging to our health, and particularly to the liver. Hydration and water. Water is the elixir of life, and the body is 80% plus water in terms of our circulation, our brain. And so we really need to make sure that we're well hydrated and drink plenty of water. And then the other element to look at is to look at things like heart disease and cancer risk and lifestyle risk, and know the factors that contribute to behaviors that can increase risk associated with those diseases. And then finally, as we age throughout the decades, from childhood through to adolescence, to young adulthood, to middle age, to senior citizenship, then the focus on health and well-being can very often change, and the behaviors that are needed to protect ourselves as we go through that age range continuum are so important. And if we don't look at those areas we've just discussed, then risk factors will certainly increase. So for a corporate health behavior profile, we need to look at many of those factors. So the three key elements are listed there. It's called the three-lane highway. It was originally designed by a very famous Olympic athletics coach, and he's identified that we've got our professional commitments in our lives, our jobs, our work, and what we do professionally. That includes training, that includes education. There's lots of things that really contribute to our professional persona. And that's a very important element of our lifestyle. Then the next one is family. And as we go through life, then we have family commitments, we have family responsibilities, we have family challenges. And so there's also on the other side of the fence, great enjoyment with families, great support and great connectedness. And so families are important. And finally, we've got the personal element. That's what we do outside of professional commitments, outside of family commitments, what we do for ourselves, our own spirituality and our own enjoyment. And often people have difficulty balancing all three. And invariably, professional life, to a degree, family, overtakes our personal enjoyment and our personal health and well-being. And sometimes that can get sacrificed. Not always, but sometimes that can be the case. So we have to look at all of those elements when we look at our wellness audit to make sure we have that wonderful word called balance in centering all of those to benefit our health and well-being. So what are winning sort of behaviors? Well, there's a very famous Olympic coach and mentor called David Brailsford, and he worked very closely with the British Olympic cycling team, and they were very, very successful indeed. And he developed a whole series of what we call winning behaviors that will impact our health and well-being. And in a personal sense, we need to audit. So when we think about being involved in our professional careers and our work, then some of the questions we can ask of ourselves is, am I in control of my emotions? Or do I let anxiety and tensions and stresses and strains really impact on my behavior? And of course, that can have a negative impact on our health. The next question is, do I allow personal problems to affect my work? And sometimes people have a whole series of issues and challenges themselves that may be outside of the work, but do they take it to work and do they let it impact on their work? And that's a thing to obviously avoid, because that has a negative impact on your performance. Another key behavior is you're working in a team, as we all are in our businesses and certainly in dual life. Do we criticize our team members, or do we support them and give them constructive feedback, which you can see in the middle box below? And this is a critical one, which I'll talk about in a little bit more depth in a moment. Do we seek out marginal gains? What that means is, do we look at small but significant improvements that can actually benefit our performance, and in this case, our health, that can make a real difference? So there's lots of little things we can do to actually make our health to be more positive, to be better, and make us feel full of energy and improve our well-being. When we're working with other people, do we actively listen? So many people that when they're engaged in conversations actually don't listen actively. They don't switch to the person talking and really listen to what they're saying. And that's so important. And then when we go back to our teams, do we proactively help to solve problems for our teammates? And do we work together as a team to try and produce a positive outcome? And that's part of teamsmanship and being proactive in terms of having a good synergy in a team. And proactivity is the difference very often between a good team and a great team. And so those are some of the winning behaviors. But in our next slides, we'll look at the whole concept of marginal gains that can affect our health and well-being and our performance in our business world. So if we move on to our next slide, you can see the shot of some cycles in the background. When Dave Brailsford looked at increasing marginal gains, he looked at every element of cycling performance that could make a difference. The streamlining of the bike, the materials that made up the bike, the lightness and shape of the saddles, the position of the rider as they were riding the bike, the streamlining of the helmet so that the air flushed over the head and down the back, the position of holding the handlebars, the cadence of the wheels of the bike as they turned, a whole series. And he looked at every single element of making a successful Olympian cyclist. What was the result? By looking at just improving a whole myriad of small things. In 2012, the Great Britain team produced 9 Olympic records and 7 world records. And in 2007 to 2017, they won 66 Olympic and Paralympic gold medals. That's amazing. And the whole inference of that was to increase the marginal gains by making improvements and small differences. Take that to your health. And if you do that with your health, then, and by just improving small things, then the benefit overall on your health can be phenomenal. So that's what we mean by marginal gains. So one of the things that we need to do, and some of you will have seen this slide before, we have to judge how ready we are to make changes. And I used the example before of exercise. What's somebody who's a pre-contemplator? They're not thinking about exercising regularly and the benefits on their health and well-being. Number 2, what's somebody who's a contemplator? That's a person that's thinking about exercising regularly, but yet to do it. I think it's a good idea. What's number 3? Preparation. That's the person that's bought the best pair of trainers, got a wonderful tracksuit, has rejoined the gym, is really dead keen to exercise, and it's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. Number 4 is action. That's when they've been exercising for 3 to 6 months on a regular basis for 2 to 3 hours a week. Number 5 is maintenance. That's when they've been exercising for 6 to 12 months for 2 to 3 hours a week, and it's becoming a real health behavior. And number 6, termination, is when they've been exercising for 2 to 3 hours a week for 5 or 6 years, and it's part of their lifestyle. We all want to try and get, in terms of benefits of all the health behaviors we mentioned earlier, to number 6, so that it's part of our lifestyle and it is inherent in the way that we exist and benefit our health. And 2 important questions. If we want to make changes, we have to ask, how important are those changes and how confident are we to make those changes? And so if we had a scale of 0 to 10, if we're 8 or 9 in importance and confidence, we are ready to make those changes. And very often we'll need different motivators to build our confidence to make changes. And it has to become important in our minds that we need to make those changes to benefit our health. So all of those are important aspects of auditing our wellness and our lifestyles to benefit our health and well-being. So back to the cycling and looking at energy and performance. And the rhythm of our energy creates the pulse, I call it the pulse of life. It's the stimulus for all of our growth, of the tissues in our body, of the improvements in our cardiovascular and respiratory health, in the energy that we can maintain, in the optimization of things like our digestion and the cells in our body. All of those things are important to maintain good energy and making sure our body systems work effectively. But, and it's a big but, energy renewal is equally important. And that's when we rest and we allow growth to actually take place and we allow our cells to repair. And how often do you see people that overdo things and spend so much energy, whether it's at work or whether it's exercising or whether it's challenges, and they don't have any downtime? What they're doing is they're depriving their body of renewing its cells and having the energy to recover. And so that's so important. And you can see the team there of cycling together. And so when you've got good energy, you've got the people that are around you that share that energy, and it makes you part of a very, very energetic team. So important is the whole concept of energy and performance. And then the next slide. So there are 4 key areas that I'm going to look at the end of this series of webinars. And I've called it my personal wellness canvas. And there are the physical area, the emotional area, the spiritual area, and that doesn't mean religion. That means what you do outside of work and family for yourself, for benefiting your own energy performance and your own self. And then the 4th area is one of risk. And when we look at those areas, we can ask ourselves certain questions about our health and well-being. So let's move on to the first one, our physical well-being. And let's look at how we could possibly audit that. So physical well-being, well, there you can see the body. And the body has several key systems in that body to make it function effectively. And there you can see the full musculature of an individual, so important for movement and health. But inside that body, you've got the heart and lungs that are supplying the whole body with energy. You've got the digestion that processes foods and supports the energy we need. You've got the lymphatic system that helps promote how our energies move throughout the body and our system works throughout the body, and the cellular functions of it are correct. And so all of those things are key elements of our body. So if we move on to physical well-being, what we need to realize is we're all different. And we have 3 basic types of body shapes and size. One's called an ectomorph, one's called a mesomorph, and one's called an endomorph. And that whole, if you like, assessment approach is called your somatotype. And what's an ectomorph? Well, an ectomorph is a very slim and linear person, and very often very quite thin. What's a mesomorph? A mesomorph is Mr. or Mrs. Muscles, and they are clearly in good shape and have got a very, very strong musculature and very, very prominent musculature. And what's an endomorph? That's a chunkier type of person that is probably a little bit more rounded, a little bit chunkier, a little bit larger. And we're all usually a combination of at least 2 of those types. So we can be a mesoectomorph. That's a muscular and slim individual, which is very often thought, if you could choose your body shape, very often that is an ideal body shape. Or we can be a mesoendomorph, and that's a combination of being muscular and being on the chunky side. And the good news about that, and sometimes people think it's the bad news, but those people have got to exercise for the rest of their lives, because if they don't, that combination of mesoendomorphy will lead towards them putting on weight very, very easily. And I'm sure you all know people that are combinations of those somatotypes. And the clever approach to health and well-being, when we audit the whole approach to keeping people in good shape, is to realize what sort of body type they are, what balance of somatotype they are, and giving them realistic goals in terms of their health and well-being to make them reach their optimum in terms of well-being. So if we move on to our next slide, that's where some products are critical. And here we've got Dual Life Day, and we looked at energy during the day. We just talked about that. Well, all of the superb vitamins and minerals and plant-based bases are in Dual Life Day, and that will help support our vitality during the day. It will help us optimize our physical condition, build our immunity, really support our heart function, and again, support the brain and support our memory and concentration. And add all those up together with Dual Life Day, and you've got a supplement that really complements our energy and well-being. Dual Life Night. Remember, I said that one of the key things we have to do is to recover and renew. And so for that, we need a good night's sleep. So Dual Life Night will help optimize better sleep for us. It'll reduce any irritability. It'll help cleanse our body and repair our cells. And remember, that's when cell repair happens during sleep, and enhance our liver function and support our digestion. So those are two superb products that will certainly benefit our physical well-being, and that's the first part of the audit. So when we move on, let's look at our emotional well-being, and that's looking at combination of our energies in terms of emotions, brain health, mental health. So important as part and parcel of our well-being. And there are so many things that can make up our mental wellness. And of course, one of the big worries at the moment that we're hearing about almost daily is premature dementia, when people are not operating effectively in terms of their health and wellness of their mind and brain. And that can be very, very sad at times. But so many things can contribute to our mental well-being and our emotions, our own personal feelings, our anxieties, the stresses in our lives, how much resilience we've got. We talked a lot about those before, and they're all part and parcel of mental wellness. So emotional and mental wellness is a key element of auditing health. So if we move on to our next slide, Dual Life Mind has a great complement to promoting our mental health and well-being. And you can see some of the wonderful fruits and minerals and vegetables there that, amazing really, that putting them all together will enhance or help enhance our cognitive function, will make us sharper mentally. So important to protect our mind, and the mind-body connection is key. Another one is Pro Lumino, and again, a lot of the key extracts that are listed there from some of the things you can see, the zinc, the grapefruit, the sage root, all of those things will support Dual Life My Mind to really promote health and well-being of the mind. So they are, again, critically important and a key part of a wellness audit. So if we move on, now we're moving on to our personal welfare. And I've put in brackets there, spirituality. It's what we do outside of our professional commitments, outside of our family, what we do for ourselves. And that is so important. And when we realize that actually looking after ourselves will impact on everything else in our lives. And so, do we take the time to relax and take a minute for ourselves? Um, or are we so pressured that we consider that we just simply don't have the time to do it? And how often have you heard people say that sort of thing? And of course, time management is important, but spending time for yourself and doing some of the things that you really enjoy are critical to your health and well-being. And you have to remember, you're your biggest asset and your most important asset. And you should look after yourself, not just for yourself, but also for the people that you matter to in a great way, your family, your work colleagues. So critically important to take care of yourself as part of your personal well-being. So we move on. Again, dual life day and night will complement your own personal wellness, your own spirituality, your own ability to actually look after yourself and be proud of who you are and your own health and well-being. And so again, those supplements, both of them are great for your own personal well-being. So the final area, as part of our wellness audit, is health risk. And there are lots of features that we can measure that will combine to form a risk profile. And if we get some of those elements wrong, it's like a time bomb. And there's an illustration of the heart there. If we don't look after all the elements that make a healthy heart, our nutrition, our exercise, knowing our risk factors, then it can help compromise the circulation around the heart and cause major problems. And that applies to many diseases. So, what we should really focus on is knowing our key health and well-being numbers. Already, I've measured some of the people as part of Dual Life, and knowing that your health numbers, just like you know your business numbers, is so important as part and parcel of your health and well-being. And that again is critical part of risk. And certainly for your own personal health and knowing your numbers, here are three great products. My Blood, with all the complex vitamins and minerals that it has as in that wonderful glass bottle there, that will benefit your red blood cells, your oxygen carrying capacity, your hemoglobin, all the essential ions in your blood, your B vitamins. All of them are contained in My Blood and very, very good for reducing risk factors and helping your health and well-being. Chlorophyll, which will benefit your intestinal function, your digestive function, the microbiome, the immune factors that your body needs to protect you against a lot of the uh, ravages of always being busy and always being under pressure. So chlorophyll is a very, very good product to have. And then thirdly, collagen for your skin, for your muscles, for your joints, for the things that make up the human body. So you put those three together and they will complement knowing your numbers and helping you certainly reduce risk. So as we move on, some wellness goals that we need to really focus on. To be healthy, we need to eat well. We need to have the right complements through the supplements we've just illustrated. We need to drink lots of water. We need to exercise regularly so that we are actually mobilizing our bodies and making them energized. We need to go to bed early and we need to wake up early. We need to have a regimented series of approaches that give our bodies chance to recover and maintain consistent sleeping hours for keeping our bodies healthy. Throughout the day, we need to practice recovery time. And I know that Jim Lear in his book, The Corporate Athlete, says that every 90 to 120 minutes, we should take at least a 5-minute brain break where we can regenerate our mental and emotional health and well-being. And then finally, we need to share successes and failures and our well-being improvements with those of us that are closest to us. So what does our body need? Well, you can see a great illustration there. Every day we need 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 21 building blocks, amino acids, and omega 3, 6, and 9 acids. And they will all complement our bodies. Do we get them through all the foods that we eat? We probably don't. That's where the supplementation and the great products that we've talked about will really, really benefit. So how do we pull all this together? Well, one of the things that we're going to do at the end of this series is I'm going to give you a series of 8 or 9 questions that relate to each of those areas on your physical well-being, your emotional well-being, on your personal welfare, and on your health risk. And together, combined, they make up 34 questions. And you can score yourself on those questions, which will make up the wellness audit. But to really understand all the elements, we're going to take each of those 4 areas over the next 4 seminars and discuss them in more detail and relate them to the products that can benefit each of them. So they're physical, emotional, personal, and risk. And that's what we're going to do over the forthcoming seminars. So at the end of it all, you'll be able to score yourselves and hopefully use those key questions to benefit not just your health, but your families and those people around you. So I'm very excited about this whole seminar series. So coming to a close now, it'd be wrong for me to finish without mentioning World Healthy Living Foundation and the World Healthy Living Foundation internationally, because they are helping us to propagate and promote informations around healthy living that can really impact the populations at large around the world. And so a real series of applause for the work that they're doing and the educational materials and promotions that they're generating. And then finally, I'd like to thank you very much for listening to me. I'm so excited about the next series of webinars that I'm sure that we'll all hopefully gain some great benefit for our health and well-being. So I wish you all a lovely evening. It's been a pleasure speaking to you as always, and see you all soon. Hi, good evening, everybody. This is Dr. Dorian Dugmore speaking to you this evening about the second part of our program on wellness audit. And if we remember, we're looking at 4 different elements of well-being. We're looking at the physical aspect of well-being, and if we go to the next slide, so we're looking at the physical aspect of well-being, we're looking at the emotional aspects of well-being, we're looking at the spiritual aspects, which means not religion, but means what you do outside of work and family to look after your own health and well-being. And the 4th one we're looking after is risk. You know, what are the key risks that you should avoid and take care of to protect your health and well-being? So there are four elements really. And then what we'll do, just to remind everybody, is that at the end of the 4 sessions, so towards the new year, I will then ask you a series of 34 questions, 8 or 9 on physical well-being, 8 or 9 on emotional well-being, 8 or 9 on spiritual well-being, and 8 or 9 on risk. And then you can score yourselves on how well you do, giving an overview of your complete health and well-being. So hopefully it's going to be really fun. So tonight is the first one that we're kicking off with, which is looking at your physical well-being. So, physical well-being. Well, you can see there, physical well-being relates to all the systems of your body and how well they function. So you can see you've got the brain there, we've got the eye, we've got the heart, we've got the lungs, we've got the skin, we've got the digestive system and the muscles in there, and all of those different elements come together to be in good health, to look after your physical well-being. So we're going to focus on how we can optimize your physical well-being as we go through the presentation this evening. So the first one, day and night. What is that? What does that slide mean? Well, to look after your health and well-being, you need to exercise regularly and moderately. So the first question that comes to mind is, when is the best time to exercise? Well, on the left-hand side is the morning part of the day, and on the right-hand side, we're moving towards the evening part. So if you want to lose weight, then probably the best time of day to exercise for your physical well-being is actually early in the morning. Why? Because you start to generate and improve your metabolic burn, the burn of your chemistry in your body that burns up energy, and it lasts for 8 hours. So that makes a lot of common sense. So if your goal is to lose weight, then early morning exercise is good, and you will have a greater metabolic burn, burning some of your energies for the next 8 hours throughout the day. So that's where early morning exercise is good. When's the most dangerous time to exercise? Actually, in a contradictive way, it's early morning. Why? Because you've been sleeping, and as you've been sleeping for hopefully 7 or 8 hours, then your blood starts to thicken, and then it's called the viscosity of your blood. It starts to thicken. And so if you suddenly, literally get out of bed and start to exercise, then you haven't given your body time to warm up towards the waking state, and it can be a little bit dangerous. There's a very famous study called the Rhode Island Jogger Study. Rhode Island is in America, and they found that the most dangerous time for exercise is in fact early morning, when they had a number of cardiac events of people that used to do early morning jogging. So what are the guidelines? Well, the guidelines are, don't suddenly get out of bed and start exercising. You need to have a slice of toast, some juice, something to stabilize your sugars. Because if you do start exercising early in the morning, you can feel a little bit faint. And so you need 15 to 20 minutes just to allow the body to acclimatize to waking up before you start exercising. So that's very, very important to realize. And remember, the other benefit is you'll have a greater metabolic burn for the next 8 hours. And so that's going to help optimize you lose a little bit of weight. But don't be fooled. You won't lose masses of weight, but it will help you. Then in the evening, exercise for the extrovert people who listen to the presentation is probably a good time for exercise, but be careful. Don't exercise too close to bedtime, because what will happen is you've revved up your metabolism, you've revved up your energy production, and then you want to go and try and go to sleep. It won't happen. You'll be wired, and it will take a little bit longer to calm down, ready to allow you to rest. So the latest time really for exercise in the evening is probably between 7 and 8 o'clock, and probably no longer than that. If you make it too much after those hours, you're going to have some problems relaxing, letting your metabolism slow down, and being able to fall asleep. And remember, sleep is when your cells repair. So you need sleep. The other thing to realize there is the two forms of exercise. There is aerobic exercise on the left-hand side, showing the lady that's running, and using weights on the right-hand side, showing the gentleman who's training there. It's so important to train both of those elements. And we'll see why as we go through a little bit later in the presentation. But exercise contains both of those elements. And of course, there's another element that's missing that isn't shown on the screen there, and that is the element of flexibility. And all of those elements together are very important. So cardio exercise, strength training, resistance training, flexibility, and we're beginning now to move towards a rounded exercise program. Okay? Now, so two types of exercise we've got there. We've got the teamsmanship type of exercise when people are going to a class or exercising together as part of a team. And then, of course, you've got the weight training type of exercise that's shown on the right-hand side. But on the left-hand side, you've got a special rating scale. It's called the Borg scale. It's developed by Gunnar Borg, who was a Swede, and he used this idea of you classifying how hard you're finding the exercise. And so it starts at the top. Don't ask me why it starts at 6 and not 1, but it does. So it starts at 6 and goes down to 20. And in stages, it goes from number 7, very, very light, number 9, to fairly light, number 11, to somewhat hard, number 13, to hard, number 15, to very hard, number 17, to very, very hard, which is number 19. So where do you think the best bang for your buck is in terms of exercise? Well, let me tell you, from number 7 to number 11, that is light to fairly light exercise. That is probably a more continuous form of exercise that you could last for longer being involved in whichever exercise you choose. And there's a thing called the MET cost of activity, and a MET is how much oxygen you use at rest. And we all use 3.5 milliliters of oxygen at rest in the sitting, doing nothing state. So what is fairly light, for example? That's about 4 to 5 METs. What's somewhat hard? That's about 6 or 7 METs, number 13. 6 or 7 times the amount of oxygen you would use at rest. What is number 15 hard? That's probably 8 or 9 METs, or 8 or 9 times the amount of oxygen you use at rest. And what's 17 to 19, that can go as high as 12, 14, 15 METs. You've got to be pretty fit to get up there and sustain the activity. So the best place to exercise is around numbers 12 to 13. So how do we know that we're in that appropriate training zone for exercise? Well, 4 things you can remember. Number 1, you can hear your breathing. So you know that the exercise intensity has been such that you're able to hear your breathing. Number 2, you're conscious your heart rate has increased and your heart is beating faster. Number 3, you can feel a temperature change. In other words, you're probably beginning to sweat a little bit. And number 4, you can still talk, but you can't recite your thesis. So you can hold a conversation, but not a protracted conversation. And it's important to realize the difference between the two. So you're able to talk, but not for long, protracted periods of time. This is a very, very good scale. And when you think about rating how hard the exercise is, we use it when we test people in our cardiovascular suites. And I have my own cardiac clinic, as you probably know. And we show people this during an exercise stress test. In other words, when we put people on a bike or a treadmill, and every 2 to 3 minutes, the exercise intensity gets harder. We then show them this card with the Borg scale every 2 or 3 minutes to find out how hard they're finding the exercise. And the moment they tell us it's now become hard, in other words, number 15 or 16, we know that they have only got 2 to 3 minutes left, and it will be rigor mortis time to finish the exercise because it's too intense. So it's a very, very good scale to use to gauge how hard you're finding the exercise. Next one. So exercise isn't just about cardio exercise. It's about body composition, and it's about your muscularity. And remember, I showed you this slide before. There are 3 body types. Ectomorphy, an ectomorph, very skinny, very thin individual. Mesomorphy, a Mr. or Mrs. Muscles. And endomorphy, a Mr. or Mrs. Chubby. So we're all usually a combination of 2. So we're either mesoectomorph, so muscular and on the slim side, or mesoendomorph, muscular and on the chubby side. So what is the message behind this slide? Well, if you're a mesoendomorph, I've got some good and bad news for you. The bad news is you're going to have to exercise for the rest of your life, because if you don't, you'll far more easily put on weight. The good news, that's going to benefit you in lots of other ways in terms of keeping you healthy and well. Mesoectomorphy, don't be fooled by that. There is such a thing as a thin, unhealthy body, and you've still got to exercise and be physically active, which is what this webinar is all about, to keep yourself in great shape throughout the rest of your life. And so there are different focuses, but in all of those 3 body types, it's called your somatotype. Then exercise and physical activity is very, very important indeed. The next slide, maybe some good or bad news, depending on how much of this you know about. But basically, muscles start to lose their capacity, and they start to waste away as early as 45 years of age. Actually, it's actually 40, and in some cases, even lower than that. So you see muscle loss occurring as people start to age. The disease is called sarcopenia, and it's about losing your muscle mass. So what's that telling us about physical well-being? It's telling us that we need, as we get older, to include more resistance training and weight training in our approach to exercise and looking after our physical well-being. It doesn't have to be heavy weights, but you can use weights. And the general rules are, if you want to gain strength, it's quite heavy weights with a low number of repetitions, probably 5 or 6, maximum 8 repetitions. If it's for keeping your muscles in good endurance shape, then it's probably 10 to 12 repetitions. And you do 3 sets of each, whether it's for muscle gain, whether it's for muscle endurance. You need to bear that in mind when you're training and looking after your muscles. But rest assured that after the age, certainly of 40 to 45, you will start to see wastage in your muscles. So what's a typical exercise session? Well, for moderate physical activity and well-being, then a great exercise session would be probably 25 to 30 minutes cardio and 15 to 20 minutes resistance training using weights. And weights doesn't mean using heavy bars. You can use bands, you can use lots of different techniques for stretching and working at your muscles. It's so important to actually use and develop as we get older. Remember, muscles to cause action have to cross a joint, and they cross a joint through a tendon. And the tendon is inserted into the outer casing of your bone. It's called the periosteum. So when you are moving your muscles with a weight, with a band, whatever your mode of training is, you're pulling via the muscle on the tendon against the outer casing of the bone. What does that do? It helps to influx the production of extra, it's like marrowbone jelly, like extra jelly, bone matrix that gets produced inside the bone. Why is that important? That will avoid you getting brittle bone disease as you age. And of course, you hear of loads and loads of people that have uh, they look fairly slim and well, but they've fallen down and they've had a serious bone injury. Classic one is a hip injury. And actually, it causes them major, major problems. And the older we get in decades beyond 45, the more important it is to make sure that you have good resistance training and weight training in your regular physical activity routine. If not, you'll end up like the cartoon character on the right hand side there, almost being crippled because you haven't got the muscular strength to support your daily living. Okay, so what other benefits of exercise have we got? Well, we know that exercise reduces inflammation, which contributes to a number of diseases, dementia, heart disease, and cancer. So let's look at those. So next slide, we'll look at regular exercise can reduce the risk of developing dementia by 28%. And we all know what dementia is referring to. It's your ability to process information in your brain and your ability to be active in terms of your mental capacity. So regular exercise can reduce the risk of developing dementia, where the brain matrix gets reduced and your abilities of cognitive thought get reduced by 28%. That's amazing. So what sorts of things can benefit you? Well, you've got some of them listed there. Regular domestic activity like mowing and raking, dancing and swimming, great activity, particularly swimming because that's non-weight bearing. So if you've got problems with your joints, swimming is very, very good. Hiking and biking, weight training, squats, resistance, techniques, push-ups, just local muscular endurance, and then gardening. And don't forget the yoga, because yoga is really important for helping you relax the mind, but also by stretching and relaxing the body and keeping you really nice and supple. And so this is information produced by the Alzheimer's Society. Reduction of 28% if you just are moderately active. Remember, 12 to 13 on the Borg scale. So that's important. So the dementia. 7 healthy benefits of exercise as it affects your heart. Well, you probably know these already, but I'll try and simplify them for you. As you get fitter and you exercise regularly, generally speaking, you have a lower resting heart rate. What does that mean? That means that for every heartbeat, you're able to pump out more blood per heartbeat, which means that you don't need so many beats each minute when you're exercising or just going about your daily physical activities. So it helps to lower your resting heart rate. It helps to lower your blood pressure. And blood pressure is a major problem. And it's a silent disease. People don't realize they have it until it's often too late. But what does exercise do? In a crude way, it stretches your tubes. It gives your tubes, your circulation, a workout. And what happens is the elasticity of your vessels, of your circulation of your vessels, increases with moderate activity, moderate exercise, and that will then benefit you and lower your blood pressure. What's the next one that happens? Well, the next one is it increases a thing called your collateral circulation. And if you remember from previous webinars, your collateral circulation is the circulation around your heart, the B roads. I told you about the main A roads around the heart, the coronary arteries. Well, the B roads are the microcirculation attached to those main arteries. What does exercise do? It actually increases the number of B roads or collateral circulation around your heart. That's benefit number 3. Number 4, it increases your peripheral circulation. Your peripheral circulation is your circulation in your muscles. And so when you exercise regularly and moderately, and I've done so for a number of years, you'll have better circulation in your working muscles. So it increases your peripheral circulation. That's what that is. The next one is increases a thing called your AVO2 difference. You think, what the heck is that? Well, when your heart beats, it pushes blood around your body. Originally, through your arteries, and then blood comes back to your heart through your veins. And all we do is we measure how much oxygen is in your arteries compared to how much oxygen is in your veins. And you might be surprised to know that a significant amount of oxygen comes back in your veins because there aren't enough bus stops for the oxygen to get off as it's flowing through your arteries. Well, I said peripheral circulation increases with regular exercise. What does that mean? It means there are more bus stops, more tubes for the oxygen linked to your red blood cells to get off and service your muscles. So less comes back in your veins. So what is AVO2 difference? As you exercise more, there's a bigger difference between the amount of oxygen in your arteries compared to the oxygen in your veins. And that's a real benefit. Another one, another benefit of exercising your heart, increases your stroke volume. And your stroke volume, a bit like an engine, isn't it, really? Your stroke volume is how much blood your heart pumps out per beat. That's your stroke volume. If your heart's strong, it has to beat lesser number of times in a minute because each beat pushes out more blood because the muscles of your heart are stronger and healthier, hence your stroke volume increases. And then finally, it increases a thing called your cardiac output, your ability to support exercises. It gets harder and harder. Cardiac output is a simple equation. How many times your heart beats by your stroke volume, how much blood your heart's pumping out. And of course, towards maximum effort, you've got a greater cardiac output. So there we are. There's 7 benefits of exercise on your heart. And of course, they will all result in a thing called your VO2, your oxygen consumption at max, being greater. So those are real health benefits to your heart with regular physical activity. And there's loads more. Regular physical activity helps lower your cancer risk. Breast cancer, cancer in the kidneys, colon, bladder, esophagus, lungs, stomach, endometrial cancer. Why? Well, in terms of breast cancer, keeping the muscles around your breasts in good shape will support the circulation to the muscles around the breasts and keep them firm. Kidneys, it'll increase the filtration rate of your kidneys, and that can help you support things like your blood pressure. Colon, well, moving food through your digestive system into your colon decreases a thing called transient time, the way in which food is then made into your feces, and then you can get through your digestive system to get rid of some of that food, and that is increased. Bladder, your urinary capacity to keep that healthy and be able to literally pee more clearly and more effectively. Esophageal cancer, making sure that the esophagus, the windpipe is looked after in terms of health and well-being. Lungs in particular, by exercising the lungs, you'll keep lots of air sacs open and being developed, and that can help reduce any risk of things like cancer. And the story goes on. Stomach, endometrial cancer is quite interesting. With regular exercise there, you get lower levels of estrogen in females, and there's an increase in a thing called cytokines, which is a protein that has an anti-inflammatory effect. And so by regular exercise, those cytokines will increase, and the health benefit on the endometrium is very important as well as reducing the estrogen and making the whole scenario of endometrial health better. So you add all those together, and you can help reduce the risk of many of the cancers that occur there. One we haven't talked about, but we mentioned earlier, was exercise and flexibility. So important. I mentioned muscles need to cross a joint. They do. And the joints have two important structures. Tendon, which is like an elastic band that pulls those muscles across the joint, and ligaments that keep stability in the joints. And that's where collagen and a thing called elastin are so important in those joints. As we get older, those joints tend to stiffen. And when they start to stiffen, the range of movement gets reduced. And when the range of movement gets reduced, we're more susceptible to injury. So keeping joints to work through their full range of motion is critically important for physical well-being. And it becomes more important as we age, and we should realize that. So when we look at things that we can become engaged with to benefit flexibility, then you've got two great examples there: Tai Chi and yoga. And certainly as we age and we look at our physical well-being, they will help you dramatically keep your flexibility and improve your flexibility. But just be careful, because when you stretch and you use physical activity through the stretch reflex in your joints, if you jerk when you stretch, you can easily tear those ligaments and tendons that relate to your joints. So the best piece of advice I can give you is, when you are stretching and you're getting involved in these sorts of activities, do it gently at first and do it steadily rather than jerk in that motion. But both of those activities, Tai Chi combines both neuromuscular health, how you control your muscles in a very, very definite and controlled way, together with being flexible. So it's a great form of exercise. I tend to do Tai Chi every morning for 10 minutes. And then, of course, yoga is fantastic in terms of getting you not just to stretch your muscles and joints, but great for the mind and great for your serenity. And they're important components of health and well-being. So two good ones there, okay? Sleep. Sleep is very, very important. And remember, when we talked about sleep before, then I said to you that at that time, sleep is the new exercise. And just to remind you, there are three components of sleep. Light sleep, when you start to fall asleep, lasts for about 20-25 minutes. Respiration slows, heart rate drops down, temperature drops down, breathing becomes more relaxed, and you fall asleep. Then you go into REM sleep, rapid eye movement, dream sleep, when the start of cell repair begins. And then you go into the red section, deep sleep or delta sleep. That's when your cells repair and rejuvenate. So critical to have those phases throughout a night's sleep. And combined, each of those phases lasts about 90 minutes. So you should have, ideally, at least 5 phases of that sleep, and ideally even 6, where you give your body chance to recover and your cells chance to repair and rejuvenate. And that is so, so critical. And you can see, as the waking state approaches, when you look at the right-hand side, you get less deep sleep, more REM sleep, until cortisol, the hormone, increases in your body, and that's what wakes you up, and then you reach the waking state. Earlier on, though, in the early parts of sleep, your body produces a lot of melatonin, another structure in the body that actually helps you relax and fall into a deep sleep. But so important. Remember, you need lots of sleep. Next slide. So, sleep quality is influenced by diet. Don't eat big meals before you go to bed and fall asleep. Exercise. Don't exercise too close to the time when you go into bed, else you'll be still wired. Stress levels. Remember, if you're worried about things, do a thing called a brain dump, where you write those things down on a notepad, put them by the side of the bed or put them away from the bed, so that you've almost parked your problems, because you can't do anything about them when you go to sleep. So get rid of them and just write them down on a piece of paper or your notebook. And then if your lifestyle is forever stressed and you're always buzzing around all of the time, that can certainly affect your sleep, and you won't be able to wind down and switch off. So all of those qualities are so important for your physical well-being, to remember that you need that sleep to recover. Okay, next slide. So what should we take? Well, there are two superb items that will benefit everything we've talked about up until now. Dual Life Day, promoting all of the biochemical metabolic reactions that increase your vitality, your physical condition, help bolster your immunity, benefit your heart function, the things we talked about before, and benefit your memory and concentration. Why wouldn't you take something like that if you've got all those benefits? And then Dual Life Night, well, one of the key things you want to do when we sleep is relax properly, so we'll get better sleep. We'll get reduced irritation. The body will repair itself and cleanse, and all the key elements of your digestion and your function of your tummies will be benefited by Dual Life Night. So what a perfect combination to take, and both of those I take regularly and feel the benefit. So family and diet. Well, we're moving on to nutrition now. Well, in one small statement, the Mediterranean diet is the best diet you can follow. What does that contain? It contains the things you can see on the plates there. Lots of fish, rich in their omega-3, omega-6, omega-9 fatty acids. Lots of vegetables and fruits, so important. Lots of plant-based foods, which are key for your digestive function as well. Add them all together and you've got the Mediterranean diet. Now, that is the best diet. There's a book written called The Blue Book, or the Blue Zone, sorry, the Blue Zone, that looks at 7 different populations around the world. And the one thing that's common to most of them is they eat along the healthy lines shown to you on the screen there. But there's another interesting thing about that slide on the screen that you probably haven't picked up, and that is there are loads of people, a family, eating together. And you know what? We don't do that anymore. We are so busy in hectic time schedules that families very often eat at different times, different places, and they're never together. But it's really important, at least 2 to 3 times a week, if possible, to get the family together, to sit around the dinner table and to enjoy the company of your family or your friends, as well as the healthy food that's involved in the Mediterranean diet. And here's one really important fact. Your body does not know it's full until you've been eating for 20 minutes. And when you do that, then there's a thing that basically the brain called the apostat, that passes all the messages onto your tummy and helps you realize when you're full and really controls your eating. If you always eat too quickly and too fast, you're more likely to probably overeat and take in more than you need. So that's another great reason while family eating with close friends is very, very important. So hopefully you'll get that one. That speaks for itself. Those are foods to avoid. Ultra processed foods. Foods that have been treated by certain chemicals in certain ways to very often extend their shelf life. And you've all heard, I'm sure, of trans fatty acids, foods that are contained in some of those foods listed on the screen there that are dangerous for your health. They promote the production of a thing called free radicals in your body that attack the oxygen components in your body, and all over time can even make them a little bit more cancerous. And so avoid too many of those ultra processed foods. UPS, they're called. They've been treated, they've got lots of chemicals in there that can cause real problems for your health and well-being. So compare that slide with the previous slide, and you can see which is the healthiest type of food to eat. So avoid ultra processed foods. Okay, so coming towards the end now. So when we look at products that can support everything we've talked about in our physical well-being, we've got three great ones there. We've got collagen that can benefit your appearance, look at your condition of your skin, your hair, your nails, and can aid joint flexibility and mobility. So collagen is a great product to have. My Blood, where we talked a lot about the heart and what it does and how the blood circulation occurs. Well, one of the things that you need is the right vitamins and minerals in My Blood to promote good cell production and cell action around the body, serviced by the circulation. So My Blood is a great one. And of course, chlorophyll again helps to cleanse the body, looks after the microflora in the tummy and the digestive system to keep the body in good shape, almost building sort of elements of immunity. So three great products there for us to promote and have as we move forward. Okay, next slide. Coming towards the end now, exercise and aging. Well, this is a famous study by Ralph Paffenbarger. And I've used it before, and it looks at how people's vitality changes as they age from 35 years to 85 years. And it has three groups. One called the typical group, which is what do you expect when you get older? Each decade, your health and well-being, your physical well-being goes down the tube. Then he has a group that he humorously calls the pessimistically optimistic. You know, they look after the weight sometimes, they try and reduce their stress, they exercise now and again, and they watch what they eat, but they still go down the tube and deteriorate. But then he has a group at the top, the ideal. And the ideal is the group that watch their weight, eat healthy diet like the Mediterranean diet, regularly get involved in physical activity, have a good social connection and share time with people. And what happens? Can you believe they only lose around 12% to 14% of what they had in their 30s when they're in their 80s? Well, if we could put that in a pill, we would all take it, wouldn't we? So there we go. Exercise and aging, looking after your physical well-being. Okay, so my last slide, and there we are on time, hopefully. Energy and performance. Well, by expending energy during the day, it's a stimulus for growth, for both cell growth, for effective cardiovascular and respiratory function, for effective digestive function, all the things that we talked about at the beginning, so that the cells in the body function effectively. But remember, then you need time to renew that energy, and that's where growth actually takes place. So sleep and rest is important. Guys, I hope you enjoyed what we've had to say today. That's physical well-being and physical health. Next one is going to be on emotional health. So it's been a pleasure chatting to you and talking to you. And I wish you all a great night's sleep and a very good night.